Brandon James with 95.3 WBCK here with Andrew Layton, who's the Public Affairs Officer for the Michigan Air National Guard, and Jānis Kukainis, who is from Latvia and has been the president and involved with a lot of things over the years between Latvia and Michigan. And we're talking about a couple of anniversaries, a 100-year anniversary for Latvia's independence, and then a 25-year anniversary of connection between Michigan and Latvia, and that's what Andrew's going to talk to us about, and Jānis. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, Brandon. We're very happy to be here.
All right, well, where would you like to start?
Well, I think with the Michigan National Guard this year, we're very excited about a couple of anniversaries. As you mentioned, we have the 25th anniversary of our relationship with the Latvian National Armed Forces, and that's a bilateral partnership that we have between the National Guard forces in Michigan and our counterparts over there. And then we also are celebrating the 100th anniversary of Latvia's independence, so that's something that we get to participate in with our partners here.
Just kind of worked out good that way.
Exactly. And today, I'm happy to have my friend Jānis Kukainis here, and I think you know, his experience is pretty unique coming from Latvia, and you know, again, there's a lot of connections that go beyond the military defense cooperation with Michigan and Latvia.
Sure.
That I think he can probably help describe a little bit.
Absolutely. Love to hear your story.
Oh, well, I'm typical. I'm an American who was born in Latvia. I came here when I was 8 years old, and as a matter of fact, I celebrated my birthday on the ship over, my 8th birthday in 1951. Lived in Cincinnati, but I always maintained in our family, I was aware of our Latvian heritage. I kept the language, but otherwise I had the typical American life. You know, I went to high school, I played football, I went to college, I worked in the aerospace industry. I retired from Ford Motor Company 20 years ago. I was always active in the Latvian community, but after my retirement I needed something to do. Mm-hmm. We moved to the Kalamazoo area, which is a Latvian center in Michigan, and I continued my activities, and I got also involved 25 years ago with the relationship between the Michigan National Guard and Latvia, and my added value or value added contribution was that I could speak Latvian, and when the original Latvian officers and so on, the military people came over here, they didn't speak English, so I was basically a translator. So I traveled with them to the Selfridge base, to up north to where we. Up north to
Grayling.
Yeah, to Grayling.
We like to just call it up north anyways.
Up north, north to Grayling, and I've been involved from the beginning. During that time, I was also president of the American Latvian Association, which is the umbrella organization for about 165 Latvian organizations throughout the United States, and I was also World Federation. The Latvian World Federation chairman, which is the worldwide umbrella organization. And one of the aims of all these, of both of these organizations, was to achieve Latvian independence again. So we've been involved since the foundation of these organizations in 1951, and it just fell together with the Michigan National Guard, and there are quite a we have a fairly large Latvian community in Michigan. We have active churches in Saginaw, in Detroit, in Kalamazoo, in Grand Rapids, and social clubs and so on. So that's about my story.
Well, it's a great story, and again, a lot of people probably aren't aware that there is such a connection between that country and the state of Michigan, and in particular here in Southwest Michigan. So why don't we touch on some of the local aspects of that, and maybe some of the most amazing things that have happened in the last 25 years as that connection has grown stronger.
Sure. No, that's a great point. There is a lot of history, and just backing up a little bit, you know, Latvia was a part of the Russian Empire until 1918. They gained their independence, and that's what we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of this year. And then 1940, they were invaded by Russia, and then during World War II, they were also, you know, various occupations between Russia, the Soviet Union, and the Germans. And then, of course, they were part of the Soviet Union from the end of World War II to the fall of the Soviet regime. So how we got to be involved with Latvia from the Michigan National Guard is that when the Soviet Union collapsed, there was a security vacuum, basically. So the Baltic states put out a request for security assistance, and the National Guard Bureau of the United States started looking at ethnic populations in the U.S. and where these hotbeds of immigrants had settled. And of course, as Giannis pointed out, Michigan is home to a large population of Latvian Americans that came here as refugees during the Soviet occupation. So, in fact, our Adjutant General in Lansing was actually very familiar with the Latvian American community. His secretary was a Latvian American, so she said, "I think we need to get on board with this partnership, sir," and that was the beginning of our relationship. So we were actually the first National Guard from any state to partner with a nation in this way, and from there, this state partnership program, as it's called, has grown to include over 70 partnerships between U.S. states and international.
So just got the ball rolling,
yeah,
really.
Got the ball rolling, yeah. So it's kind of the gold standard. But for a long time, I think that the relationship was focused on kind of infantry tactics. The Army did a lot of engagements with Latvia. They did a couple of joint deployments to Afghanistan, where sadly 2 Latvian soldiers were killed.
Right.
But it's a true statement to say that the Michigan National Guard has fought and bled, with our Latvian partners. But then in the last few years, I think the Air National Guard has gotten a lot more involved. And that's where, here in Battle Creek, our airmen have done a lot of things in Latvia. So part of that shift was just a different approach to strategy from the Latvian side. And we've been able to assist them in building capability at Lielvārde Airfield, which is a hub of NATO operations. So they actually are able to host NATO aircraft, and that gives them a very potent defense capability. But I mean, just here in the last year, we've welcomed quite a few Latvian airmen to train with us. We had a security delegation here in March that did a big exercise. It was kind of a simulated active shooter type of scenario. And we had not only our military security forces, but we had Michigan State Police, and we also had representatives from the local county sheriff's department also. So it was a multinational, multi-jurisdictional, multi-agency exercise, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool, and I'm sure what it did for everyone involved, it gives everyone a dimension to see that they're not used to, you know, whether in law enforcement, at the sheriff level, or the state police level, or the military level. Kind of give you all a different view of how operations work. Absolutely. So what do you see going forward with this connection between Michigan and Latvia? Yeah,
no, that's a good question, because the commander of the Latvian Air Force was actually here in Battle Creek in August, and he was looking at some of these future partnership opportunities. Sure. So I think you'll see more collaboration, like in cyber. We have our cyber defense squadron in Battle Creek.
Well, we know where the world's going digitally.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a very close partnership there. We're also continuing to work with public affairs. We're doing a lot of work also. Regionally, I think you might see some of these partnerships expand to include some of the other Baltic countries, Lithuania and Estonia as well. Okay. And we continue to do a lot also with mission planning and kind of the command and control aspect of things with our air operations group with the Latvians. So something else that we were really proud of that happened this year was over the summer, we had several dozen civil engineers from Battle Creek go over to Latvia, and they built a couple of dormitories at Adige military base, which is, again, a place where troops from other NATO countries go to be housed, and this is part of the deterrence strategy for Russia's aggression. Sure. And while they were there, Governor Snyder actually had a chance to go visit, and while he was there, the Latvians named a street Michigan Avenue, actually. So it was the first time, to anybody's knowledge, that we've actually named or have had named a Michigan Avenue outside of the United States. That was pretty cool.
We need a Latvia street now here in Battle Creek, right?
Well, actually in Alpena, you bring that up. In Alpena, there's a street actually that was named after one of the Latvian soldiers that was killed in Afghanistan. Okay. So anyway, that just goes to show, I think, how important the relationship is to them, but it's also something that I think the Michigan National Guard gets a lot out of, because not only do we get to train in a different environment, I think if you look at the way operations are conducted today, we can't really do anything by ourselves. So anytime we get a chance to train with people from a different country, where English may not be their first language or their primary language, there's value added all the way around.
Right. So, well, and the world keeps getting smaller, and so any of these partnerships internationally are very important. And then having such a strong foundation with us already, I'm sure it goes a long way not just for Latvia, but for the United States as well.
Exactly, that's very true. And of course, it's always fun, to welcome them here. Sometimes it's their first trip to the U.S.
Sure,
and
it's a lot to take in.
Exactly, yeah. But really,
that goes both ways.
There are so many similarities. I mean, Latvia looks a lot like Michigan, just its topography and
vice versa. The climate even is on par a little bit too, right?
Very much so. And I mean, they even have the Baltic Sea. We have the Great Lakes. So there
Do you get lake effect snow?
Yeah.
Or Baltic effect snow, or whatever they call it.
Sea effect. There's also, you might know, there's a Riga, Michigan.
There is, yeah, Riga, Michigan. Riga is the capital of Latvia. So
there's a Riga, Michigan.
Huh.
Down there.
But well, Giannis, you can probably say better than I can, though, what it means to have these type of relationships for Latvia.
No, it's very simple for Latvia. It's fine that NATO troops are there. It's fine that the Canadians are the NATO representatives, the Canadian contingent in Latvia. But the only country in the world that can guarantee Latvia's security is the United States. So it's very important that we can this relationship between Michigan National Guard and the Latvian Armed Forces, and believe me, the Latvian government's very aware of it. They can't maybe say it out loud all of the time, but I think the signals are pretty, obvious that the guarantor of the Baltic states, all the other two Baltic states also it's the United States. So the relationship's very good. We're Americans of Latvian descent, and we're doing our most, or however we can, to enhance this relationship. And I think that's kind of our mission, and especially here in Southwest Michigan, there are quite a few of us.
Well, and that's why we want to get this out there, because a lot of people either just don't know it or they don't understand it. They've heard of Latvia, they might not know the country's history. So I'm glad that you two could both join me today and check out this web video and read some of the content that's going to be in this as well, because it'll give a lot of information, and you just might learn something new today and get a little history lesson in there as well. Right. I want to thank you a lot, Giannis.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew.
Hey, thanks for having us.
I'm Brandon James, 95.3 WBCK.